The Short Life of the Little Firstborn Heir, James, Duke of Rothesay. The firstborn child of Margaret Tudor, daughter of Henry VII and Elizabeth of York and King James IV of Scotland, was born on the 21st of February 1507. He was born in Holyrood, and to the delight of everyone was a boy, the longed-for male heir. He was named after his father James and given the title Duke of Rothesay, as was traditional for the eldest son of the king. As was customary of the time, King James was not present for the birth, but it is recorded that he rewarded the female servant who gave him the news of the new arrival with a silver goblet filled to the brim with gold coins. The baby prince was christened 2 days later at Holyrood Abbey, dressed in white silk and borne to the font on an ermine-trimmed cloth of gold cushion. However, his mother did not have the most easy time, and Margaret lay dangerously ill in her bedchamber as the court celebrated the arrival of an heir. Margaret did not have an easy labour, suffering a great deal before falling into a fever almost immediately after the birth. In response to the wife he cared for, although not necessarily passionately loved, King James made a pilgrimage on foot to the shrine devoted to St. Ninian, located 120 miles away from Whitthorne Priory, Dumfries and Galloway. The arduous journey took the king 7 days to complete on foot. The worried king did not complain the entire way, although the 4 Italian musicians he took with him were sent back whilst James made whole way to the shrine. It would later be said that Margaret began to recover as soon as her husband fell to his knees before the shrine. Although it makes for a lovely story and must have been particularly pleasing to the devout King James, it is unlikely to be true. However, Margaret did begin to recover, whether by divine, medical, or luck. By spring's end, she once again started to appear in public. The little baby Duke of Rothesay continued to thrive after his birth, and in June, after several months of preparation, King James mounted an ambitious and extravagant tournament in celebration. The tournament not only celebrated the arrival of his much-loved legitimate son and heir, but also the recovery of his wife from the ordeal of childbirth. The pageant was entitled The Jousting of the Wild King and the Black Lady, and revolved around a young Moorish woman known at court as Black Ellen. Black Ellen was brought to Scotland with another girl at the end of 1504 by one of James's sea captains, Robert Barton. Robert Barton presented them to Margaret as gifts. By all sourced accounts, both James and Margaret were very fond of Black Ellen and Black Margaret. The tournament lasted for 5 weeks and was by all accounts a glorious affair. Heavily inspired by the old tales of King Arthur and his knights, which was considered the pinnacle of chivalry at the beginning of the 16th century. As a contrast to the noisy event, Margaret paid her own thanks to the birth of her child by following in her husband's footsteps on a pilgrimage to the shrine of St. Ninian in Whitthorne. As soon as she was strong enough to leave Edinburgh, she travelled in a litter accompanied by 17 pack horses laden with all the luggage. With the numerous rest stops considered necessary, it took Margaret a month to make it to the shrine and a month to return home. Although Margaret was never as devout as her husband, she believed in the potency of holy relics and believed in direct communing with saints, either through their shrines or handling the precious objects, was more effective than simple prayer alone. As the seasons changed to winter, the prince continued to thrive, and young Prince James celebrated his first birthday on the 21st of February 1508. Though it was not to be, Prince James fell seriously ill at Stirling Castle, where he resided with his nursemaids, and although a valiant effort was made, the young prince passed away on the 27th of February 1508, just 6 days after his first birthday. Margaret and James were naturally distraught by the loss of their son and heir, though there is no doubt they consoled themselves with the knowledge that Margaret was already 5 months pregnant, much as Margaret's mother and father consoled themselves when they lost their Princess Elizabeth. Very few sources give information of the prince's funeral, and the young prince and heir could have been buried in Edinburgh, Midlothian, Scotland, or Stirling, Stirlingshire. This has been devised due to his siblings being buried in these locations. This little prince could have one day become king, and was the much desired prince after a political marriage, though like the story of many young princes and princesses in the time of the Tudor period, it was not meant to be. This brother of his that shared his name would go on to being James V, King of Scotland, whereas his little brother, who could have shared that similar story and fate, was instead lost. Thank you for watching, and to support our channel, please do not forget to subscribe.